Let us continue reading this book by Uriah Smith, Daniel and Revelation, 1897. We are now reading Revelation chapter 6, verses 12 to 17. Before I share with you today's reading, I would like to invite you for a word of prayer. My Father in heaven, I thank you and I praise you for this temporal freedom once again that you've given us. Our life is in your hand. And thank you so much that you've called us from darkness to this true light. I pray in the name of your Son, through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Uriah Smith comments, Sir Charles Yale gives the following graphic description on this remarkable phenomenon. In no part of the volcanic region of southern Europe has so tremendous an earthquake occurred in modern times as that which began on the 1st of November 1755 at Lisbon. A sound of thunder was heard in underground, and immediately afterward, a violent shock threw down the greater part of that city. In the course of about 6 minutes, 60,000 persons perished. The sea first retired and laid the bar dry, then rolled in, rising 50 feet above its ordinary level. The mountains of Arravida, Estrella, Julio, Marvan, and Centra, being some of the largest in Portugal, were impetuously shaken as it were from their very foundations, and some of them open at their summits, which were split and rent in a wonderful manner. Huge masses of them being thrown down into the subjacent valleys. Flames are related to have issued from these mountains, which are supposed to have been electric. They are also said to have smoke, but vast clouds of dust may have given rise to this appearance. The most extraordinary circumstance which occurred at Lisbon during the catastrophe was the subsidence of the new quay, built entirely of marble at an immense expense. A great concourse of people had collected there for safety at the spot where they might be beyond the reach of falling ruins. But suddenly the quay sank down with all the people on it, and not one of the dead bodies ever floated to the surface. A great number of boats and small vessels anchored near it, all full of people, were swallowed up as in a whirlpool. No fragments of these wrecks ever rose again in the surface, and the water in the place where the quay had stood is stated in many accounts to be unfathomable. But Whitehurst says he has certain it to be 100 fathoms. In this case, we must either suppose that a certain tract sunk down into a subterranean hollow, which would cause a fault in the strata at the depth of 600 feet, or we may infer, as some have done, from the entire disappearance of the substances engulfed, that the chasm opened and closed again. Yet in adopting this latter hypothesis, we must suppose that the upper part of the chasm to the depth of 100 fathoms remained open after the shock, according to the observations made at Lisbon in 1837 by Mr. Sharp. The destroying effects of this earthquake were confined to the tertiary strata and were most violent in the blue clay on which the lower part of the city is constructed. Not a building, he says, on the secondary limestone or the basalt was injured. The great area over which this Lisbon earthquake extended is very remarkable. The movement was most violent in Spain, Portugal, and the north of Africa, but nearly the whole of Europe, even the West Indies, felt the shock on the same day. A seaport called St. Obis, about 20 miles south of Lisbon, was engulfed. At Algiers and Fez in Africa, the agitation of the earth was equally violent, and at the distance of 8 leagues from Morocco, a village with inhabitants to the number of about 8 or 10,000 persons, together with all their cattle, was swallowed up. Soon after, the earth closed again over them. The shock was felt at sea on the deck of a ship to the west of Lisbon and produced very much of the same sensation as on dry land. Off St. Lucas, the captain of the ship, Nancy, felt his vessel so violently shaken that he thought she had struck the ground, but on heaving the lead found a great depth of water. Captain Clark from Dinia and at latitude 36.25 north, between 9 and 10 in the morning, had his ship shaken and strained as if she had struck upon a rock. Another ship, 40 leagues west of St. Vincent, experienced so violent a concoction that the men were thrown a foot and a half perpendicularly up from the deck. In Antigua and Barbados, as also in Norway, Sweden, Germany, Holland, Corsica, Switzerland, and Italy, tremors and slight oscillations of the ground were felt. The agitation of lakes, rivers, and springs in Great Britain was remarkable. At Loch Lomond and Scotland, for example, the water without the least apparent cause rose against its banks and then subsided below its usual level. The greatest perpendicular height of the swell was 2 feet 4 inches. It is said that the movement of this earthquake was undulatory and that it traveled at the rate of 20 miles a minute. Great waves swept over the coast of Spain and is said to have been 60 feet high at Cadiz, at Tangier in Africa, and it rose and fell 18 times on the coast. At Funchal, at Madeira, it rose full 15 feet perpendicular above high water mark, although the tide, which ebbs and flows there 7 feet, was given at half ebb. Besides entering the city and committing great havoc, it overflowed other seaports in the island. A Kinsale in England, in Ireland, a body of water rushed into the harbor, rolled round several vessels, and poured into the marketplace. It was before stated that the sea first retired at Lisbon, and this retreat at the ocean from the shore at the commencement of an earthquake and its subsequent return in a violent wave is a common occurrence. In order to account for the phenomenon, Michel imagines a subsidence at the bottom of the sea from the giving way of the roof of some cavity in consequence of a vacuum produced by the condensation of steam. Such condensation, he observes, to be the first effect of the introduction of a large body of water into fissures and cavities already filled with steam. Before there had been sufficient time for the heat of the incandescent lava to turn so largely a supply of water into steam, which, being soon accomplished, causes a greater explosion. Library of Choice, Literature, Volume 7, pages 162, 163. If the reader will look on his atlas of the countries above mentioned, he will see how large a portion of the Earth's surface was agitated by this awful convulsion. Other earthquakes may have been as severe in particular localities, but no other one of which we have any record, combining so great an extent with such a degree of severity, has ever been felt on this earth. It certainly supplies all the conditions necessary to constitute a fitting event to mark the opening of the seal. We'll read the next paragraph the next time. And God our Father, to bless you and His Son be gracious to you now and forever.